Welcome back. You're watching This Is a Point here on AM Live. If you missed also the dailies at the top of the hour, here we are. And this is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. 1 million Form 1 places up for grabs. Schools have created 1,054,000 slots in massive secondary education expansion. Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i expected to make key policy changes for secondary institutions as he launches selection for national schools today in readiness for the free learning program for day scholars, which will begin in January. And this story is tucked away on page 8 and 9 of the Daily Nation today. Also, you can see Matiba feeling poorly there, and Uhuru brings cheer to the ailing Matiba. This is, of course, yesterday, and we can see him chatting with former Cabinet Minister Kenneth Matiba, who is recovering at Nairobi Hospital. 35-year-old veteran politician and multi-party crusader has been ailing it since he suffered a stroke while in political detention in 1991. Also, NASA leaders sign threat to Raila Earth Plan is another story that you want to follow on page 4 of the Daily Nation today. And dreams start for stars at Sekafa feat. Thousands turn up to watch Kenya beat Rwanda by 2-0 at Buhungu Stadium in Kakamega yesterday. We have the Standard up next, and this is what is on the front page of the Standard today. Changes or change of guard, it says, it's all about transition. CS is asked to prepare handover notes as naming of new cabinet looms. President may decide to reappoint all or some members of the old team or choose to inject new blood as he seeks to cement his legacy in his second and final term. We shall be looking at this much later in the course of the program. Outgoing cabinet secretaries' faces also are splashed on the front page of the Standard as well. Let's see what we have in the Star. This is what is on the front page of the Star today. It says, week of hard decisions for Uhuru and Raila. President Speaker weigh delayed recess to vet CS's efforts to broker deal as ex-Prime Minister insists on taking off. This story is tucked away on page 4 and 5 of the Star. Scramble for Form 1 slots as selection begins. Matiang'i to open 9-day event at Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Also 20+ City Hall secret and accounts shocker for MCAs. That is what we have on the front page of the Star. A quick look at Taifa Leo, and this is what we have. Kauli ya Uhuru ya Koselewa. That is what we have as a splash on the front page of the Taifa Leo. You can follow this story on page 2. And also we do have the Citizen in Tanzania. Before we go there, we have the Business Daily. And this is what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. Allow me to show you what it says. This is the one. Job loss fears as firms issue profit warnings. Employers blame prolonged electioneering and bad policies for the downtown. This is what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. Lenders on the spot for breach of privacy is another story that you want to follow on page 4 of the Business Daily. And also we want to see what we have on the front page of the Citizen in Tanzania. It says, CEOs, this is why 2017 was bad for business. Business leaders cite at least 3 factors that made 2017 a particularly tough year. That story tucked away on page 2 of the Citizen. Still in Tanzania, we have Mwananchi as well, and this is what we have on the front page of Mwananchi. Aliyejivua ubunge CUF da aacha kicheko bombwazi. That is what we have on the front page of Mwananchi in Tanzania. In Uganda, we have the Daily Monitor. Government to import 200 doctors from Cuba. Remember also in 2015, there was a debate of the state-aided, of course, brain drain, where they were taking a lot of their doctors to Trinidad and Tobago, and now we have them now importing more doctors. He says Cabinet has constituted an ad hoc committee to work out the finer details of the deal, which includes hiring retired Ugandan medical professors to plug manpower gaps in Uganda. This story continues on page 4 of the Daily Monitor. Let's see what we have on the front page of the New Times in Rwanda. Government reassures on investors' power concern. That is what we have on the front page of the New Times in Rwanda. And we can see also Kagame First Lady hosts kids' end-of-year party. She is seen here taking part in a walk alongside Kigali residents as part of city's monthly car-free zone day dedicated to pedestrians, I should say, and cyclists yesterday. That is what we have on the front page of the New Times in Rwanda. Let's see what we have on the front page of the New York Times. And with few hurdles left, GOP sprints to send tax overhaul to Trump. That is what we have on the front page of the New York Times. Emails dispute picture of Flynn as a rogue actor, contacts with Russia during transition, aides to Trump, tracked call to ambassador. And this is the ongoing story of Russians being embroiled in the US elections. You can follow all the details, of course, also on the front page of the New York Times. That this is the national edition. Looking ahead and over his shoulder, success and scandal creates roller coaster for the president. This is on the front page of the New York Times. I want to show you quickly what we have as editorial cartoons today. And this is what we have in the Daily Nation, according to Iga. Hey, remember to sign our visitors book. This is how it will be. All right, the open borders policy that we just mentioned earlier has really drawn a lot of variegated reactions. We shall be discussing that as well. And we do have the stir as well. And this is what Victor has drawn for us. Uhuru's cabinet's post-dilemma. Every feet is jostling to fit in those shoes. Who will go, who will remain, and who actually will come? That is a question that we'll be looking at as well. So, reactions are variegated on Uhuru's decision to waive stringent visas requirement for Africans visiting the country. Whereas this is progressive and strategic, it is fraught with considerable challenges. Hence, it ought to be critically examined before being rolled out. In his inauguration speech on the Tuesday of last week, President Uhuru also promised more goodies for citizens of East African community states, which are jobs, land and settlement. And the probing question remains, do we have plenty within our borders? And looking also on the flip side of the politics, NASA's cookie, is it starting to crumble? Top leaders of the National Super Alliance are split over whether or not Raila Odinga should be sworn in as the people's president on December the 12th. The division pits mostly younger politicians against their seasoned counterparts who believe that doing so will be catastrophic for the former prime minister. It is similar fears that put off a supposed oath-taking last Tuesday to coincide with President Uhuru Kenyatta's inauguration at Kasarani, with only a memorial service at Jacaranda grounds that was also stopped by the police. And this morning, I'm holding court with Professor Peter Kagwanja, who's just joined us. He is the Executive Director of the African Policy Institute. Also, we do have with us Dr. Shem Ochuodho, who is the global leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. Also, we have Governor Mudhomi Njuki, who is the governor of the Tharaka-Nithi County. We have also with us Shakeel Shabbir, Member of Parliament, Kisumu East. Also joining us this morning, Farah Maalim, who is the Deputy Leader of the Wiper Party and the former Deputy Speaker of the 10th Parliament. Gentlemen, good morning again.
Good morning.
All right, let's continue with the we continue with what actually is happening, especially with now the Uhuru's Pan-Africanism agenda. And this is what has been drawn here by Iga. A lot of reactions that we are receiving so far. What is it bound to do for us as a country?
Before that, I had something on environment, waste management.
Could you just hold that, because I think we're really strapped for time and I think we're past that Rubicon right now, right? But let's talk about this particular agenda that we have here and looking at that particular editorial cartoon. Let's hear from Peter Kagwanja, who's just joined us.
I think the policy is a very bold one. It's a reflection of Uhuru's Pan-African agenda, which started during his inauguration in April.
Yes.
2013. And the main point is that Kenya, for example, can access virtually all African countries without visa. You go to Namibia, you go to Zimbabwe, you go to Zambia, you go to Ethiopia up here, you go to Uganda, all our neighbors you can go without visa. So holding visa is no longer useful in that regard. So it is tightening immigration control, ensuring who is coming in and who is not coming in. So that's important. The second point is about the economic gain. Immediately the person arrives at the airport for visa, Kenya starts making the first dime. And this person doesn't have a house here, So they must be accommodated. So they'll come to our hotels and you know, get their rooms there. And for their time of stay, they'll be spending. That is how countries like America, countries like Spain, countries like Britain make their money, from our immigration, shopping, and so on. Nairobi is the capital of Africa, particularly in this part, between Johannesburg and Nairobi and Cairo. The only other city you have is Nairobi. It's a shopping basket, it's the shopping center for many of the region. So crossing the borders is not extremely helpful. Of course, there are challenges to that. And particularly the border tightening the immigration control procedures and systems. And I think Kenya is capable of doing that. So I think on the balance, it's a wonderful, wonderful policy. Diplomatically and if you wish, I mean, diplomatically, it is making a lot of sense to the rest of Africa. It's a kind of a payback. Africa was very, very generous to Kenya, particularly when it was facing the ICC. And Africa literally threw its weight behind Kenya. And that's why we now can talk about stability and our sovereignty is back. So it's payback time.
It's payback time. Do you think this is just a do-good posturing as far as diplomacy is concerned? Because now this is his final term. He has to leave a legacy. And are we really, as a country, ready for an open-door policy? Let's say from Dr. Shem Ochuodho, very briefly.
Debarl, like Professor, I think it's commendable. The bold move the president took. It's leadership. I remember this happening a while back, a few years back, when Kenya and Tanzania had a problem of work permits and visas. And what did the visionary leader, President Kagame, do? He just said, let East Africans come. That kind of solved that problem, because Kenya followed suit soon after. I know we still have some issues. In Tanzania, I do know that Kenyans are charged handsomely. I think it's about $3,000 to get a work permit. So there are still deterrents to allow Kenyans the movement of labor into some of our neighboring countries. But that notwithstanding, the fact that the President Kenyatta did this without any conditions shows leadership. I do know that before it's implemented, obviously there are laws that must be put in place to bring it to effect. And I'm also hoping that the experts looked at the various aspects, for example, implications on security and so on and so forth, and how are we going to mitigate against that. But again, this is where the big data we were talking about earlier and the launch of the high-performance computing facilities at USIU come in. Because if you have sufficient big data processing power, anybody coming in, like even from that cartoon you were showing, Debarl, of somebody looking like an Al-Shabaab walking in, obviously with proper automated systems, you would be able to know from the push of a button whether this is somebody who should come in or shouldn't come in. So big data is an aspect that we must embrace. Finally, remember, it's not only Kenya that's opened its borders. To the best of my knowledge, Addis, and perhaps because it hosts the AU headquarters, any African can go there and get a visa at the point of entry. So, and I think Rwanda has also done similar. But where Kenya has gone a step further is for East Africans, where we are saying let them come in like Kenyans with their IDs, a national ID, whether it's a South Sudanese or a Tanzanian or Burundian. I think to that extent, President Uhuru has broken new ground. But let's have the laws to bring it to effect. All right, maybe lastly on that, I was a bit disappointed. We are talking about the aliens in our country, or diaspora in Kenya, but the president didn't talk about his own diasporas. So that was my only disappointment.
But doesn't it really fly in the face of what we're trying to do? We have been trying to take the refugees back to Somalia. Or that is a different kettle of fish altogether. And yet we are opening our borders for, how will they come? And how can we now vet and really know this is not a refugee, has a genuine, very genuine condition that he wants not maybe to come to Kenya because of economic reasons as well, right? Because it really flies in the face of here we're struggling with the international community to close the Dadaab refugee camp, and here you're opening borders as well. So the same people we're taking back to Somalia, well, they'll find just a way of coming back to the country.
Debarl, don't dilute the efforts by the president to
I'm just asking probing questions.
Serious Pan-African agenda to actually be able to market Kenya in this particular. But I want us to look at that cartoon again. Just flash it back, put it back on the screen. What is the impression being given here? You look at those two gentlemen are playing poker cards. So it means that they will not be interested really in flicking this guy to find out whether he notices he's carrying a gun. And of course, the system has beeped to show that that's a matter. I mean, he's carrying something dangerous. Mm-hmm. What it's trying to say is that the message to the immigration department is an open border policy does not mean that you put your guards down, that you do not have stringent measures and checks to actually be able to vet these people to find whether they have what all is required to be able to get to the country. It does not mean that you just walk in and nothing happens to you. For you to get a visa, there must be other conditions that must prevail under the circumstances. So that is what really we should be aware of. So it does not mean that walk in, walk out policy. But I want to look at it in a different way slightly. Look at the timing that the president used to announce this policy of open border. The East African presidents were seated there except one. And you know, of late, we have had a bit of issues here and there with the Tanzanian neighbors. And I'm thinking that this could be an olive branch to the Tanzanian president by our president, saying, well, you're trying to play naughty by banning chicks that leave Kenya and taking away the cattle that have crossed the border. We are saying, let yours cross over, let your people come, let the others come. We want to be more open in East Africa. And President Museveni was seated there and he was listening. And it was an olive branch to all of them to say, we are doing this thing. Kenyans also want to come out there. And in East Africa, the person who is really mobile in every part of East Africa is not really the other East Africans, it's the Kenyans. Mm-hmm. Wherever you go in this East African community, you go to Dar es Salaam, everywhere, you will find our Kenyans there. So who stands to benefit more from this? Is it the foreigners or is it our Kenyans? If the other East African president take up the leave, it is the Kenyans who will benefit from this. And looking at competition, you may think that the president is opening the Kenyan market for competition. The kind of competition that is there internally, except maybe from the Chinese, by the Kenyans and their vigilance, it is very difficult for anybody from out there to come and outshine Kenyans in what they do. It is very, very difficult. So I'm thinking it's just a way of enticing the rest of the world to be, the rest of East Africa and Africa to open up borders for Kenyans. And from that goodwill, we are going to have more Kenyans going out there to be able to survive in the market and expand their boundaries.
More Kenyans going out there, but
yes, and as far as the refugees are concerned, remember, a refugee is somebody who comes in hiding. You know, they do not have any papers. They have not been authenticated or verified for them to be here. So they are here illegally. And
as the refugees?
Yes. Those are people who come and, for example, you find them here and probably they have been cleared, and that is why you put them in camps. But for you to be able to clear them to leave the Dadaab refugee camp, you must show us where you're going and what you're going to do. When we talk about the visa, what does a visa, for you to get a visa, you must show what you're coming to do, you'll be staying, and for how long you stay.
Okay.
You know, a refugee will say, I have come here because I have nowhere to stay and I want a status, which is totally different from a visitor who is coming in.
That might be a good posturing, diplomatic posturing from the president, but what is the ramification for our wananchi as well? Because he says, of course, you'll come and also come and get employment in this country. Does it mean also you can come and even marry in this country if you get a partner? You will come into this country, of course, we'll absorb you in every facet of our system, right? And as whose, pay? Because it is a taxpayer's money that will be actually doing all this. So we've read also from informations coming to hand that, first of all, this was such a a broadside declaration that even the Directorate of Immigration was not really aware about this particular open door policy. So was there any consultation that was done, or just the president, upped and said, okay, yes, let's have an open door policy without thorough consultation? Because now we'll say we are making this pronouncement, then we have the ramifications of it. Are we going to allow also their children for a free primary education? Are we going to allow their children for a free secondary education in this country? Do we have, as a country, enough resources, knowing that also the economy has been tanking, to absorb all this? Because we've reconfigured, we've rebased our economy. We are the developing country within East Africa. So everyone will be flocking here, don't you think? Let's hear from Shakeel.
I come from Kisumu. And Kisumu was one of the centers of the East African community. At one time, we benefited because we were on the lake, we had the rail coming and going out to Uganda, etc. So this, I wouldn't even call this Pan-Africanism. I would call it East Africanism. And I think that's the point. What has been an effort over the last 50 years is trying to bring back that little East Africanism that we were trying to work at. The ramifications, of course, are there. I do not think that, I think it was political posturing. One of the points that I would like to suggest is that if you go to Uganda, that ID, the local ID of Uganda is much more superior than ours. You go to Tanzania, that local ID, which is machine readable and whatever, is much more superior than ours. So it is quite easy, if you are looking at it from the point of view of visiting, for you to put that ID into a reader and find out who this person is. But it's nothing new. The East African community has been talking about free movement of labor. I know I've been, since the 10th Parliament, I have been going to Tanzania, Uganda and other places to talk about free movement of labor. So all this is happening, if I put it in the context, is the President has just taken the agenda and the mandate of the East African community in respect of the free movement of labor and the free movement of people within East Africa, and just made a declaration as far as the Kenyans are concerned that come as visitors. I think this issue about getting married, I think that was something else. Even if you come as a visitor and get married, there are certain requirements that you need to fulfill before you can be a resident in this country and be and get the residency rights. So the issue of children not going to school and whatever pre-primary may not be so relevant at this moment in time. But I can get married to a Kenyan or something, but you have to be married how many years? 5 years or something? 7 years. So it's not that easy. So I think that what the President has done is just reinstated the ideas of the Pan-African, Pan-East Africans, Nyerere, Jaramogi Odinga and others. But I think we in Kisumu, we could benefit if they come as visitors and stay as visitors and go away. Because as I said, our ID systems are better. Now, we cannot say the same thing about Southern Sudan and Somalia, I'm afraid. Because I think we would want to be looking at different countries separately. The criteria that I'm being told a Kenyan passport can go anywhere, Shem, I was a professor, it's not true actually. It isn't true. You cannot go to South Africa, they will treat you like dirt. You cannot go to certain other countries without getting a visa, even some of the West African countries. So it's not that, but I think it is opening up, and we need to do that.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Farah Maalim. Good morning.
The idea of opening up a country and to other people, nationals from other countries, and to ease the bottlenecks in the restrictions that are there, visas and the rest of them, and make it much easier. The idea of making it easier for people to register in businesses and invest in that country. This whole thing is to try and invite people to come and both invest in here, as well as to come as tourists in here, as well as to come and add value. Immigration, for your information, into a country, whether it is for temporary purposes or permanent purposes, is one thing that has made the difference between some of the economies that have developed and developed exponentially over the last 100+ years, like the American economy itself. Americans, even today, still do, I think, admit into their country, what, like 50,000 every year? What they call the green card.
Yeah, but we know Donald Trump is rolling back on that as well.
You know, Trump is trying to roll back that thing, and it's not working very well. I think there are problems. So the whole idea is to introduce new ideas, capital, expenditure, a lot of things. Now, when you look at the situation, the explosive situation we have in the region, you will be inviting that. But in equal measure, also, you'll be inviting people who will basically be running away, what you call economic refugees.
Yes.
The one country that does not have any economic refugees, I'll tell you, and very, very few if they're there, and the country that probably whose refugees are targeted most and seen as the ones who should be restricted from coming into the country, and those are the Somalis. For your information, the Somalis have sustained our own foreign exchange economy now since 1991. They bring into this country not less than $300 to $400 million every month in the form of remittances from their relations. And even the ones who are in the refugee camps, if you give them a free access, they will not come and clog your own employment. You never find a Somali looking for a job, by the way, even if he's a refugee. They don't look for jobs. They find a way of maybe creating jobs and doing businesses themselves. On the contrary, they spend a lot. They spend both in rent, they spend in food, they spend in employing Kenyans, they spend in a lot of things. And that seems to be the one that worries Kenyans more than anything else. But that is the biggest asset that the Somalis have. And that is one area where the likes of Museveni have tried to tap onto it very hard. Because with the Somali passport right now, you can walk into Entebbe airport and you get a residence permit 7 years within a day or two. Because they understand the potential of these people. They understand the potential for them to develop that market. I mean, it's an enterprising society and it doesn't increase crime. By the way, Al-Shabaab is a very different ballgame. It's a global, and terrorism is a very global thing. But beyond that, the ordinary Somali does not increase crime. He does not make it difficult for your own social amenities. Kenya pays nothing into the refugee camps, let me tell you. The UN system pays for everything. It pays for everything, including our own security machinery in there. They give them vehicles, they give them communication equipment, they give them allowances. They bring in a lot of dollars into the country on that. So when I look at the explosive situation within the region, when I'm looking at other countries, for example, in the region, like South Sudan, like Ethiopia, which basically right now is going through some very difficult times. And it's not a small population. You're talking about 120 million people. So if people have to run for the border, and we have an open Kenyan border system here, you're not talking about a small numbers of people who could easily walk into this. So whereas I agree with the president, but at the same time, let us be very careful so that we don't compromise on our own national security. Yes. And we don't end up getting millions and millions of people who basically then we go and beg the international community to come and help them and keep them in refugee camps beyond the ones we have in there. As of the issue of us trying to take the Somalis back into Somalia, no. That was very clever economic posturing that we did that time, because the Western countries are paying a lot of money to Turkey for holding back this, what you call the trans-Mediterranean refugees. Well, our own political structure also thought if you get a bit tough on this thing, we might also be given a lot of money, which of course we did get quite a bit of it, because most of those refugees who end up in Turkey and Libya and all these other countries who want to cross the Mediterranean, a good number of them also come from the countries in the region. And many of them also emanate from our refugee camps. By the way, let me tell you one thing. It's from our refugee camps that some of these human trafficking guys do it. So it's like saying we can stop that.
Right.
They can stop that flow, but then you must pay us as the international community.
Okay.
So that was a little bit of a
All right,
playing politics with people.
Okay, but my question is, I want us to look at a two-pronged approach. First of all, security-wise, right? Do we as a country right now can afford, with our porous borders, we know what has been happening with the Al-Shabaab. Still, we are tackling with Al-Shabaab. Even after the president brought in the APCs, we find the armored personnel carriers still, they're not as effective as they should be. We've had policemen really dying within those APCs as well. We have the porous borders. We are trying to see what has happened to the other parts of the world. Take, for instance, the Belgium with their Schengen agreement, right? Where there was a free, just as we have in this East African community, you know,
Schengen.
Protocol that we Schengen agreement that I'm talking about. But since it was put in effect in 1985, right now people are talking about the Schengen agreement. Should we now abolish the Schengen agreement where there was a free, you know, open border policy? You can walk in, walk out, and we've had, you know, influx of terrorists, you know, using that particular policy to enter into those countries, and the European zone right now, everyone is leaving under fear because of terrorists. Another case in point is in Belgium, with the anti-immigration party, the AFD right now, which is picking up right now. There's an anti-immigration, you know, sort of mentality that is really coming in, because people are first thinking about their security first. Absolutely. So if we go full steam ahead with this such a kind of policy, no matter how good it looks, what will be the ramification security-wise? Will we have wasted all that money also in Somalia, putting soldiers' boots on the ground as well? Peter?
I think,
let's see if Peter will come to you.
First and foremost, if you are speaking at the heart of Johannesburg, possibly in one of the suburbs, Africans would stone you as a xenophobia. I'm talking about yourself, the question you're asking. Because the line between xenophobia and open door policy must be very well navigated. But to the common mwananchi, you cannot truly navigate between the land between open door policy and xenophobia. All they will see that these people have come to take our jobs. These people have come to take our women. These people have come to actually infiltrate our education system. And that's what Pan-Africanism is supposed to deal with. Pan-Africanism or East Africanism, as the member of parliament from Kisumu put it here. Whether it's East Africanism or Pan-Africanism, the main goal is basically to deal with the problem of xenophobia, to deal with integration, the question of integration. Integration has been proved positive. It can never be negative. Of course, even within Kenya, the free movement of population from one county to another will have security implications. But then let me put it this way. The issue we are debating here is more sophisticated than the way we're trying to put it. Because we are talking about stairs or layers of policy that will be affected differently. Dealing with the world, you maintain the normal visa system, where you take visas at our embassies outside there. That's done. With Africa, you will need visas to come to Kenya, but you can obtain them at the point of entry. That's not abolition of visa. You will take visas at the point of entry. Whether it is Wajir, or it is Kisumu, or it is wherever that border town where you're getting the visa, you'll have to have the visa. And in the visa, you have to satisfy certain conditions. Where are you going? What are you coming to do? Where will you be staying? What will you be spending when you are there? Otherwise, if you don't fulfill this, you don't get the visa because you become a public charge. And a public charge is somebody who is depending on money that they are not making. If you fulfill this and the person enters, the rest is a total gain for Kenya. One, you have an expanded market with people who are able to consume coming in. That is the reason for the green card system in the US, is to increase that capacity. Two, they are South Sudanese, they are Somalis, they are Sudanese and other people who are so well trained than Kenyans and cannot get employment in their own homes. How do you ensure that they come to serve our rural population? So the county of Wajir can hire South Sudanese as a medical doctor. So you get a super medical doctor. That is the essence of the green card. Now the other area is the East African. And the East African region, the policy is two-layered. One, For international people, you have a common East African visa, which is a tourist visa, so that you can come as a tourist to any of the countries. But if you are coming to visit for business and others, you can come to Kenya, you come to Tanzania, and you follow the policy right down. But for the East Africans, it is basically, we have already a common passport, which has been approved for all the East Africans. So if you don't have the passport, then you have the ID. And that, the same criteria obtains. At home, are you a criminal? At home, what do you do? Because you'll still have to enter into the system. Now, within the immigration department, and I want to take take exception with your statement that this was an ad hoc policy. It is not. If you talk to General Kiharangwa, he'll tell you that. I mean, give him a call. He'll tell you that he was consulted thoroughly. Everybody was consulted thoroughly. I'm saying this because I'm very close to the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the reason that my wife is there. I can certainly say that no policy of this magnitude can be taken by any government without thorough consultation. So they had the issue that this was a knee-jerk kind of a policy is not true. But on a more lighter note, the more Africans we get into this country, the more people we get into this country, the more we detribalize our minds, because we're becoming very tribal-minded as a people. You know, we only see the 42 tribes, the 43 tribes, and so on. What about the other tribes, the 45th and the 43rd, who come to contribute to the economy?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's just also wind up on it because we have a lot to cover.
Just a quick one.
Please.
That was my point. This is nothing new. This is part of the East African mandate that we worked on. We've passed it as Parliament. You can have an East African passport. You can even have the ID and walk in. It's nothing new. All the President has done is brought it into profile. As well as political posturing, whatever you want to call it, it is already there. They can actually do it. But the one thing His Excellency should do is to pay the arrears of Yala. You know, I mean, you can do one thing, yet on the physical point, when we are coming to the Kenyans paying our arrears,
no, you
yes,
take a political
it's a very important issue.
Yeah, but no, the problem is, that should not be the onus of a president, right? In the first place.
No, but I'm saying
all of you
it's not the onus of the president. I'm saying
all of you are owners of the victims of the political shenanigans and the scenario.
No. I'm not talking about the Yala nominations.
Okay.
I am talking about the arrears, arrears that Kenya has to pay to the East African community.
I get you. I get you. Let's hear from, we'll come to you.
When we are talking, maybe just staying the agenda we're talking about, at the UN level, this is the first time that they have recognized migration in the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And Africa has got what's called the African Common Position on Migration and Development, and Kenya is part of that. I wanted, when I think one of the panelists said that it's not Kenya government taking care of the refugees, it's the UN. I asked, who is the UN? We do know that Kenya contributes to the UN like other countries. Incidentally, I'm informed, I don't know if it's true, maybe Professor might know, that Kenya does not pay to the UN because our own diaspora who work in the UN, what they contribute in tax to the UN is enough, more than enough of what Kenya would ordinarily pay. So that's another remittance indirectly coming to Kenya. But yes, Kenya takes care of, when they take care of our refugees, they contribute. I wanted also to disabuse the fact that we don't need Somalians and South Sudanese. I think Honorable Farah has elaborated very well. We have Sudanese, you know, people like Joe, the National Basketball Association in the US, you know, they're recognized names. They would work with our basketballers to develop that sector, to create jobs. South Sudan has got immense resource. It's unfortunate they're going through a phase. But as a good neighbor, there is so much to benefit when we get to work together to collaborate. Finally, I just wanted to say that, yes, in terms of East Africans coming here to marry and so on with a light touch, it's not only the women they'll also be taking our men, but that's, so be it. What we hope is that from the signal that the president has done, let the other leaderships also follow suit, because that's the way to go.
All right, and of course the president gave a caveat on the issue of reciprocity. right? That you don't have to actually reciprocate what you really do. Don't you think also that that was as a point of, I don't know, I don't know how to put it truly, that yes, you don't have to reciprocate, that we're going full steam ahead regardless if you're following us.
It's good magnanimity, but any good other leader would see that. And it's not only Kenya, actually Mauritius, even Benin, a small country, long opened its borders to Africans.
Thank you.
Can go and take.
It's very briefly. It's a bargaining tool. You don't have to tell them we want you to reciprocate. If you say that directly, then
you just want to set them on a guilty
trip. However, the issue of the warning that he gave, which was very clear, that as long as you follow the Kenyan law, as long as you remain to be treated just like any other Kenyan, and that was the catch, meaning that standards will be there. There will be no relaxed standards for the business you're coming to do because you're a foreigner. If you want a job, there is what you have to actually have in terms of qualification. If it's a Tanzanian degree, we need to check whether it's authentic and it meets the same caliber as the Kenyan law degree. And that was a very strong message, because it may look like they're just coming in with their standards. They have to match the Kenyan standards. I like that. And that was a very good bait by the president.
All right, let's move on and hear from Farah. Farah.
Yes. To begin with, Debarl.
Yes.
Most, if not all, of the terrorist acts that were committed in Western Europe, particularly in Belgium, in France, these are second generation, third generation Frenchmen and Belgians. Those are homegrown. Yeah. Those are not people who have immigrated from outside, most. So particularly in France, is people who fought for the French in the First World War, from North African origin before, and who lived in that place, but who still feel that they experience racism in France. Are the people who basically take those very hard. Actually, not only are they responsible for the terrorist acts in those countries, they're the bulk of the ones who are fighting right now on ISIS, fighting for ISIS in Syria, in other places, These are Europeans, for all intents and purposes. The same way an African who lives in Africa is an African. It doesn't matter whether the color of his skin is white or brown or yellow, whatever it is, because it's the name of the continent. Those are Europeans. So to try and muddle these things, and not to be able to decipher these things and see it very narrowly, to be able to isolate the problems and the sources and the genesis of some of these problems is also a problem. Now, the issue of the extreme right-wing anti-immigration fervor that seems to be picking up a lot of traction in Europe now is the same thing that Trump is doing. It is basically a form of racism also. And racism has been with us for centuries and for millennia. I mean, we were taken in as slaves I'm talking about some of our own, race members. Not because of anything else. It's part of the racism that to assume that a certain human being is inferior to you, and so that you can then use them as a beast of burden. So these are problems that are recurring. Racism, which was part of what was responsible for the Holocaust in Europe and the death of millions of Jews, and which Hitler was involved, which the South African apartheid was, which most European countries practiced and America practiced also for centuries, is basically the things that are trying to rear their ugly heads again. And they need to be seen within that context. If we, as the black people or the people of color, begin trying to justify it only on the basis that this is terrorism. It's not terrorism. It has more to do with political validation and worth that certain deep racists are trying to pick up, rednecks are trying to pick up, using terrorism as an excuse. But the reality of the matter is that all those terrorisms are homegrown things. It has nothing to do, or very little to do with immigration.
All right, thank you. I think that one explains it a lot. Of course, this is a developing story. We'll see how that one really pans out once we get also the full gamut of how that policy will be worked out as well. And we can have content also of discussion as well. Right, let's move on to what is happening within NASA right now. And looking at yesterday's Sunday Nation, Raila Oath dilemma, and we have also as well the front page of the Daily Nation today, where their bugbears and fears about this particular oath. So, and if we may just skim through the Daily Nation today, we can see on all of the pages there that still there is also no unison front as far as this particular oath is concerned.
Of the swearing in?
Of the swearing in. They say the seasoned politicians like you, Farah, right now, you're of course pushing for this, but the young Turks are not really for this. And this also came to bear.
For the swearing in?
Yeah, for the swearing in. This came to bear also when, you know, the first slot for the first material day that was given for the swearing in was postponed as well. Because people are having bugbears and fear of this.
No. You know, as far as I'm concerned myself, and I've said this many times, I am somebody who has a legal background. And I would like to uphold the law. I have not been part of the process of the agreement that finally came in to push for that, for the swearing in. I applauded Raila last time when he said no, he's not going to be sworn in, because I think that's in my opinion. We have to uphold the law one way or the other. You say the law is on us. It has its own things. It might not be very fair, and it has not been fair to NASA this time. But I clearly, personally, would hesitate to endorse a swearing in, because that's a recipe for chaos. Not that there are no very strong grounds for people to express certain outrage or demonstrate outrages, but the mere fact that the same legal structure that we applauded one time was the one again for very valid reasons, by the way, let me tell you, for very valid reasons, had upheld this election and sworn in the president as the duly elected president of the country, with all our reservations about basically how the process itself was conducted. Mm-hmm. I think we need to sit back and try and use other methods to try and force the kind of changes and the reforms that we need to force in this country. But swearing in of another president, in my opinion, is not a solution.
Is it a solution?
I have my issues with that.
Very briefly.
Because of for very good reasons. Like I've told you, the law is the law. It could be bad. I say the law is on us, but it's the law as long as it is law, as long as it's not amended or repealed in that case. But then I also have a very strong commitment that there has to be certain changes. There has to be certain powerful reforms so that we do not have any more electoral impunity in the country.
Thank you. Let's say from Mudhomi Njuki, and this is on page 4 of the Daily Nation, where we are talking about also the unity of the NASA coalition, where Mudavadi's party is mulling over a divorce with coalition. That is a divorce with, or divorce with the scare quotes, with coalition in post-duels. And it says the National Super Alliance faces a unity test following protest of coalition partners Amani National Congress over the sharing of parliamentary leadership slots. This is, of course, with the leadership slots. This has not been bearing with this, but elsewhere in the paper also, they are torn between the young men and the seasoned politicians. Let's hear from you, Mheshimiwa.
Debarl, I was not going to discuss this, but on the tone of my friend Farah, I think I was very impressed, because we seem to be in consensus, in an agreement as Kenyans, that we are tired of these shenanigans, of unending political gimmicks. And on the face of things, I think we have one person really who needs counseling, and that is Honorable Raila Odinga. I think he has turned himself into a comedian. It's only that he has picked the wrong theater and the wrong time to be able to do some of those theatric moves that he wants to display to his fans. Because really, there's no difference between Raila saying he'll swear himself in and some boys somewhere in the village who want to act a play on treason. Because what is the legal backup for saying that I'll get sworn in as people's president? Where do we have people's president in which constitution as per se? Because Article 141 of the Constitution lays down all the procedures that are normally used in swearing in a president-elect. As far as we're concerned, Raila is not a president-elect, so he'll be getting sworn in as who. Which means that you'll be looking for an entry into causing more chaos in this country. And you look at the day you speak, the 12th of December is not an ordinary day. That's a day when patriotic Kenyans normally remember the day we achieved our independence, and therefore it's a very important day for Kenyans. What is seen to tell, what is the message to Kenyans? That this day that we got independence is not really important, it is aesthetic that are important in this case.
Thank you.
I think it's time to quit and say, sometimes you can't have it all and you live to fight another day, as it is.
All right, let's hear from Professor Kagwanja. First of all, you're taking a special umbrage with the media, especially our headline now on the Raila Oath dilemma as well, in a Sunday's Sunday Nation's splash.
I think I have great misgivings about the role of media in popularizing, debates that are basically urging, goading Kenyans to violate the Constitution or to be unlawful. Because a responsible media policy would not put Raila Oath dilemma as a headline in a country, in the foremost paper, which is the Sunday Nation, which is the Sunday Nation. I found that I was reading yesterday. I know I am part of the opinion people in the nation, but I took exception with that, with the headline. I'm not that I want to read it to tell what headlines media should have, but there is something called responsibility, national responsibility, and I think media need to begin taking its responsibility seriously in terms of shaping the thinking and the direction to which Kenyans are going to become more cohesive, more united. Let me say. But
did you read the blow-by-blow account of it to get what the headline is all about?
Sure, I did, and I'm saying it is a choice of the topic. I don't mind this being somewhere inside, because if it's an issue raised, it is. But is this the biggest issue of the week in the country? Is this the biggest story that all Kenyans need to be concerned about? That's the question I was asking.
But Professor, you cannot deny the fact that, of course, this has also largely affected the economy of this country. Many facets of the country have been affected with the towing and froing of, the two political divides.
But it's part of that. Nation need money to pay its workers. Why would you want to highlight issues that divide the nation, that undermines the economy, that have no legal basis, as the former speaker have mentioned here? But let me come to the point about what I think about it. That's enough for the media. You can take it, you can ignore it, but I'm saying at a certain point, you're becoming part of the problem, not part of the solution. That's what I'm saying. In regard to what in the swearing in, the procedure, the Kenyan Constitution, which Honorable Raila Odinga led us into effecting, he was the foremost reader. Nobody can question that. He was the foremost reader in the effecting of this new constitution. I personally worked under him for 3 good months and took cue and orders from him on how we are going to run the campaign for this new constitution. And I have never seen that robust support of a document. I saw that, and you could look at it in his eyes and see this is a person who sincerely and genuinely supports this particular process. That comes to me as a contradiction now that there is no change of the constitution by the current government. There is no change of the political order, and then you turn around and disregard the constitution as far as the issue of swearing in is concerned. It is treasonous according to this constitution. It is treasonous. It is inviting public unrest, because definitely the law enforcement authorities will not stand by and see that being done. And the moment that is done, then you are going to accuse the security forces of excessive force. Now, the other thing is you base it, it's a copycat policy. BCG has done it in Uganda. With what consequences? Conflict, and of course tarnishing the name of Uganda as a country where authoritarianism is coming back. Let me finish.
Just finish, because we're stuck for time. Just let him finish. Just finish. We're stuck for time.
Let me finish. Yeah, so it's nothing new, and we know the consequence of that if you go by the case of BCJ. The other thing you are doing is that you are disrespecting our national heritage. Why would you want to have it done at the same day we are celebrating our most solemn national day. It is basically the utter disrespect of our nationhood.
Thank you.
And our,
let's hear from Shem as we will get your closing statements. 30 seconds, we're stuck for time.
On the issue of being sworn, obviously, I don't know what local standard that NASA would have to swear in a president of whatever, People's Assembly or whatever. And I had also issue when NASA, during the swearing in of the president, decided to have the Jacaranda purported prayers with a lot of empathy to the bereaved families. My question was, which remains unanswered, did NASA have to do it on that day? I think there was no justification. But having said that, I'll also be concerned about sweeping under the carpet the concerns, because the NASA raises the issue of legitimacy. Do they recognize that the due process of electing the president were followed? But having said that, I would have concern that NASA did two errors. One, they decided to boycott the elections, and two, the only place where they would have challenged the legitimacy was in court, which they didn't do. But I'm also concerned about people in government who have a sense of entitlement. I see ministers very arrogantly talking about forgetting about how does the other Kenya feel. I talked to a number of Kenyans on both sides. Those on the NASA side are extremely pained with a lot of justification in terms of in exclusion, in inequalities, and these have to be addressed. But the way forward is to have a national conversation.
Right, thank you. I'll just give you, Shakeel Shabbir, 30 seconds to close because we're stuck for time, just in closing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Firstly, I'd like to say that I'm an independent member of parliament. So I speak as an independent. But there's one thing that you cannot get away from. The most influential politician declared at this moment in time by CNN and Africa is Raila Odinga. He's the most influential in Africa, and it was declared. So you cannot wish him away. My brother here, the governor, calling him a joker, this is what actually makes other people upset. Because I come from Kisumu. And Kisumu, why would you want to call our leader and a leader of international repute? As I said, these are the problems that we are occurring. The issue of swearing in, I want to leave it. I am surprised my brother Farah Maalim has changed his tune from what I was listening to some time back at ACOA. But I suppose that's the way politicians are, and that's the way we are. But I'd like to just finish with one thing, please.
Your 30 seconds are over.
There's my 30 seconds over, but I think please, if you could just give me that bearing. I want to say this. Members of parliament and whatever, we cannot just jump across here and there. I want to today say, whether I'm an independent or not, I was brought into this foray by Raila Odinga.
Thank you.
And I will keep that faith. And I will not allow people to just make a joke out of somebody who is an international leader.
All right, let's leave it at that. This is a developing story, Farah. We are stuck for time. My director, she's on my case. We have to wind up on this.
Just qualify because one thing is I have never said in Okoa, Kenya.
We have to wind up at that.
No. This is very important. I have to say, I have never said that I support swearing in. No, I never said that. But then the other bit is that what I'm saying is that I agree entirely with what he says. We will intensify economic boycott. This is all in the Constitution. Public resistance and other methods at our disposal. Raila initially said he is not going to go for swearing in because I understand the magnitude of that. But there are areas, there are things that can be done. And the fact is that, like Shabbir has said, I take exception. Every time I see a Jubilee person, an MP, a governor, calling names, somebody who was our prime minister.
Thank you.
For God's sake, we have to be ashamed of such things. We can talk about the ideas themselves and debate on the ideas back and forth. But to call names, I would never call a name any Kenyan leader. They're all respected. And that's basically some of the things that are dividing the country the way it's dividing it.
Thank you very much.
What I'm saying is that the problems are there, massive problems are there. I am sure there is going to be discussions on how to deal with that, how to eliminate electoral impunity in this country. Those of you who think 12th December belong only to a section of Kenyans, no. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga had more to do with that independence
right now. We have to wind up. Thank you very much. I think this is a developing story. 12th is just a week away, so we shall be drilling deeper on this as well. I'll be remiss, of course, if I mention that, if I don't mention that, yeah, we had to cover about the cabinet, but we'll do that tomorrow on People and Politics as well, as their meeting also is today. Thank you very much for your valued company. You've been watching This Is a Point.